with
Hmm.
Abhishek Bachchan.
Hmm.
And I saw the way he carried himself. I saw the humility. I saw, and I'm not just saying this because he worked with me. There's other people I've worked
Hmm.
with I would not say this about. The way he had no airs about him. He was
Hmm.
intelligent. He
Hmm.
was he dealt with everything with such a emotionally normal
Normal.
way that had a gravitas about him that I saw him and it was actually life changing for me. What was happening with the remixes was kind of watering down the original compositions. I don't
Exactly.
take I don't take an old song and re-sing it. I
Exactly.
take the original record, I pay for the master sample, we do a publishing split, and then we put it into a new composition that merges both worlds. It's not just like, let's get
Yeah.
sexy and let's redo the record. So I felt sort of like the idea was being bastardized, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So, welcome to News 18 Showsha. I'm Yatamanyu Narain, and I'm with the indie pop sensation Raghav, whose song "Let's Work It Out" Lege Pehla Pehla Pyar is trending right now on Instagram. And we got Norwegian dance group Quick Style grooving to it. How are you, Raghav?
I'm very well, thank you. I feel very lucky.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, when you make songs, modern pop, anything
Right,
after I'd say 95,
right,
2000,
right.
it felt like we got into a part of the world where everything happened very quickly
Quickly.
and things didn't last forever. Yet
Right,
for me, my historic works, particularly since COVID started,
right.
they've come back in such a way that they're almost having more success now than the success they had. It's very bizarre, you know? So to be sitting at home with doing nothing but waiting for the world to open up, and now with this video, it just feels like, I'm very
Right.
lucky that 19 years later the song still lives, you know?
Almost 19, yeah. I mean, I was in class second when it first released. So, I mean, it's a big, big deal.
Okay.
Right.
Don't
So,
rub it in. Don't make me feel that old.
so take me back to the week or the day when you first recorded this song, and it's a part of your album, which is Storyteller, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious how you chose Leke Pehla Pehla Pyar as the song to fuse it with your original song. And can you recall the kind of reception it received back then?
Sure. So the song before this was a song called Can't Get Enough.
Okay.
And that had a sample of Kabhi Yaar Kabhi Paar Lagati Re.
Okay.
And so when we were thinking of a follow-up record, it wasn't like we were just saying, "Oh, we got to sample another song again." But
Right.
it is really the fact that when I was growing up
Right.
in Canada, my parents tried to hang on to every modicum of Indianness they could
Again.
in
Yeah.
Canadian. And so for mom, that was listening to Opie Nair records. So
Okay.
I grew up in a house in the 80s with all sorts of Opie Nair music,
Okay.
and those melodies stuck in my head. And when I would hear a Western chord progression, like I could hear a Michael Jackson record, a Stevie Wonder record, I could
Exactly.
automatically hear which Hindi song would go over it in a way that I didn't know at a time when I was a kid, but was
Yeah.
essentially sampled.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I started making my own records, it made a lot of sense that that's what I wanted it to be.
Right, right, right. So coming to that album, it has it had 16 songs, which is a feat in itself because the independent musical artists that we have right now, they often take a year or two to release their songs, and their album is like 4 or 5 songs long. So it must have been quite a feat back then. So how long did it take you to sort of put everything together, and how was it the turning point for you as an indie pop artist?
Well, like what was I was 24 years old or whatever when
Right,
around that when the record
right,
came out.
right.
So, how long did it take me to put that album out? It took me 24
Yeah.
years. you know,
Okay.
what I mean is it's a lifetime of work.
Right,
That first album is, and you feel so fresh
right,
and the idea that the art that you're creating is totally definitive of who you
right,
are. I think
right.
beyond that, nowadays, like I was saying earlier, the attention span is so small
It is.
that
Yeah.
if you say to an artist, let's put out a 16 song album, they would probably, if I gave that career advice to someone, they would not call me back.
Right.
And at that time, I had so much I wanted to say. Like, there's jazz records on there, there's reggae
Yeah.
records on there, there's Hindi records
R&B,
on there, English records on there, there's soul records on there, there's R&B records
R&B.
on there. I was trying to say, look, this is the depth of who I am as a singer, as a
Right.
songwriter, as an
Right.
Indian, as a Canadian, as someone living in England. There was a whole story to be told, storyteller. There was a
Right.
whole story to be told from track 1 to track 16.
Right.
I hope we get that era of artistry back.
Again.
Because the greatest albums, the greatest soundtracks take you on that journey, you know?
Right.
But at the same time, like, there is a real benefit to the way records are released now.
Right.
They allow artists to release look, when I was a kid growing up, Michael Jackson he'd put out an album every 7 years.
Every 7 years, yeah.
Okay? Let's say every 5 years or whatever it was.
Right.
So now artists can go away. They can reinvent themselves a lot quicker. So it's not that one's better than the other. I just think that for me, that debut album, that's still, you know, it's a life-changing event in my life, you know.
Right.
I have a debut record that could do that. I got to tell a story that let me live in a lot of people's hearts all around the world because of the music and the fact that I was able to show different styles on there.
Right. Interesting. So now your second album, which was Identity, it showed a very different shade of yours as opposed to your first album, which was very R&B heavy, and your vocals were at par with some of the prominent R&B singers of that time, of like Chris Brown or let's say Neo or Justin Timberlake. So Identity was also soulful because of your acoustic number that I heard. And so usually artists take to that formula of delivering content in the same genre, but you sort of changed tracks. So what was the reason behind that? Was it due to the influence of Bollywood or some other reasons?
No, that's a beautiful question that I've never been asked. I'm really glad that you asked it.
Right.
There's 3 things that are different from the second album from the first.
Yeah.
One is the second album I had to pay for myself to make it.
Okay.
It was an independent record, you know?
Purely
independent. When you have label support, you can plant a lot of ideas and see what sticks, and there's different people in the room. The second one, when you're paying for it by yourself, I mean, the industry had changed so much. In 2004, when Storyteller came out, I was in India doing Planet M signings.
Okay.
You remember that? By 2008, it was just iTunes. Like, there was nothing. It changed completely. And forget iTunes. There was no streaming yet. I mean, most of the copies that people have of Identity are ripped off the internet for free, you know?
Yeah, pirated.
So it was a completely different mindset. The fact that you're paying to make your own records, you have 100% creative input, but it's also harder to get off the ground because you don't have the same marketing strategy or gravitas that a major label would have. And even worse, people weren't buying music at that time. So it was a perfect storm. So for me, what Identity was about was exactly that. Because at that time, what I was being told by everybody who was giving me career advice is that the Indian thing is done.
Okay.
You know, the Indian thing in the UK is done. And you should stop being Indian. And you should change your name from Raghav to something more generic. And you should concentrate on the American market. So
American market.
I took real offense to that, not because I didn't want to be famous in America, but I took offense to that because I thought it made it feel like my success was a novelty only because I was, you know, fusing Indian music. And I thought it was actually, to be honest, I thought it was quite racist, to be honest. You know? So that's why Identity was, that's why it was called that, because I wanted to make sure that there was a Hindi feel to it that definitely let people know that that's who I am. Right.
Interesting. So coming to your last proper album, which was Phoenix, and the album again adapted to the trend of 2012, because we used to hear songs from Bruno Mars, quite similar, quite in the same genre. So how did that album happen? And I would like to know what was your influence behind that album?
I think that was a really difficult period of my life personally, because I felt quite defeated by the fact that despite the fact that I was sticking really firmly to who I was as an artist, I think at that time in India, for example, VH1, MTV, they weren't paying Bollywood. They weren't playing anything but Bollywood. There was no pop music at that time in India. And then over in the Western world, I was still too Indian to really be considered a mainstream artist. So I felt quite frustrated at the fact that I was lost somewhere over the ocean. I didn't belong anywhere.
Right.
And I felt like the stage that I had helped build myself was sort of taken away from me.
Yeah.
So the Phoenix record, though, I'm really proud of it. I mean, the majority of the work on that album is with the producer, Jim Beans.
Right.
So a song on there called Love that was written for Michael.
Exactly.
That ended up on my record. There's a Hindi song called Kya Se Kya Ho Gaya that I'm very proud of. Fire was a huge hit in Canada. It's gold. I think it might have gone platinum here in Canada.
Right.
So it had various successes, but it was missing an ingredient, if you ask me, that felt like who was exactly who I was. Now, the other thing at the time was that this trend that not trend, that's a terrible word. This idea that I had of fusing old Indian records with modern music had kind of become something that was being done in India, and what they were calling remix.
Yes, and you are the pioneer of it. In a way, you are the one who, like, you have the patent to that, because you created that trend, not trend, but you created that style.
It's very sweet of you to say that, but I felt like what was happening with the remixes was kind of watering down the original compositions. I don't take an old song and re-sing it. I take the original record, I pay for the master sample, we do a publishing split, and then we put it into a new composition that merges both worlds. It's not just like, let's get sexy and let's redo the record. So I felt sort of like the idea was being bastardized, if that makes sense. So that whole period of my life was very frustrating, because I felt like none of it was adding up. None of it was making sense. And I didn't know where to go, what to do. Yet I was still able to have enough success that I was able to be an independent artist and keep afloat.
Right. So tell us something about the collaboration with Abhishek Bachchan, I think, which happened after Phoenix. I think the name of the song was Until the Sun Comes Up. So how did that happen, and how was it like for you working with him?
Oh, it was life-changing. I'll tell you why. First of all, the record's very cool. We did this whole thing where we went to Africa and donated solar lights, and we were trying to bring that to India. All that was great. The song was fun, and Nelly was on the record. But I'll tell you what was really amazing. Coming out of those few years were very difficult in my life.
Okay.
And I was working with this guy, with Abhishek Bachchan, and I saw the way he carried himself. I saw the humility. And I'm not just saying this because he worked with me. There's other people I've worked with I would not say this about. The way he had no airs about him. He was intelligent. He dealt with everything with such a emotionally normal way that had a gravitas about him that I saw him, and it was actually life-changing for me, because I went, oh man, the ups this guy's had, I'm sure he's had some downs in his life. Just the way that he dealt with everything in such a mature manner actually reminded me of my family.
Okay.
And I realized that at that time, I wanted to be more like that.
Right.
And I needed to get back to that place to make the best art that I wanted to make. I don't think he would ever really fully understand we had limited time together, and we speak occasionally, but what a big brother figure he was for me at that time, and how much it taught me, and how actually that brought me back to a place where I think now I'm maybe making the best music I've ever made coming up.
Interesting. So, like after Phoenix, why did you step away from the limelight? Like, you were releasing music on a very regular basis. You were releasing albums, you were releasing singles. But then after Phoenix, what happened? Why did you step away from it?
I don't really feel I did step away. I mean, I feel like I feel that I was doing everything independently, and I just had to be more careful about how I put records out, because you can't just dream. Also, in 2015, I had a baby girl. I had a daughter.
Okay.
And I decided that the next chapter of my career was going to be something that she was really, I wanted her to see some excellence in it. Now, I did a couple of beautiful songs with Gio.
Yes, I heard it.
Very proud of.
Sufi.
And Sufi. And Sufi is one of the songs I'm most proud of in my life, with Akshay Shinde, who wrote it. Those two songs I'm so incredibly proud of, and they've had some success in India. That was really a great time for me, because that's how I was feeling in my life. I was in love with this brand new baby girl that I had, and I was feeling those kind of things. So, that kind of mellowness and this kind of adult contemporary kind of feel that was going on. So it was good, but I needed what happened in COVID with the resurgence with my historic material to be able to share that moment with Mushtaq, who I made those records with, and get back to the studio with them. So what they've done, what Quickstyle's done recently, again, it just reaffirms what I've been doing for the last year in terms of getting ready for the new music.
Exactly. So now you were talking about Sufi, and I heard it, and it again shows a very different shades of you, because the song is very Hindustani classical-y heavy, if that's the right term. So, and it's very unlike all your previous songs. And so, all with your recent project, is it safe to say that you are reinventing yourself or reinventing the music?
No, Sufi was just such a special record. I had to cut it, and same with Mara. But the songs that are coming out, the songs coming out Wednesday, I think it is going to be, for people that loved Storyteller, they're going to feel like it'll take them back to the day they got the Storyteller album. It has a prominent Indian sample in it. It's got a beat in it, and it's straight for the club. You know what's funny? If you read the comments on the Quick Style video that now has 41 million views, I think, or 40 million views, there's a lot of people going, "Oh, this is Raghav, what great memories." And then there's a bunch of people going, "Hey, this song is cool. When does it drop?"
Exactly. And let me tell you, I was going through some of the YouTube comments on your video, and people were saying this man was ahead of its time. So that's that. Yeah. So do you feel like, how do you feel about it? Like when people say that you are ahead of your time kind of musician. So how do you feel about it?
Well, it's touching. I mean, I was telling someone the other day that, like, I've had a very strange career, some incredible success and some moments where I felt like I haven't really had an opportunity to be the best that I could be,
Right.
And that happens over a 20-year career.
Right.
And yet, you know what? I'm not just saying this to be dramatic. There's a part of me that really believes the best is yet to come, in a way.
Yeah.
Like a bit Tina Turner style.
Right.
Like I think I'm going to have a moment where I can be at my best, because the truth is I feel at my best now.
Okay.
I feel like I did when I first came out with a record. I feel good about what I'm creating. I'm in with the right people. Everybody feels fresh again. Right.
So I also noticed that despite the raging popularity in the pop circle, you stayed away from Bollywood. And Bollywood can be notorious because more often than not, it often poaches indie pop singers and they bring them to their side. So why did you stay away from Bollywood? And can you recall some offers that came your way that you declined because it didn't align with your philosophy, with your music?
Yeah, probably some things I should have said yes to. I think anytime you're at the beginning of the career, you have success doing your own thing. When you start speaking to people in Bollywood, I mean, look, Bollywood is not notorious for saying, do what you do. They say, do what we want you to do. Right. And I think that, early on, I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that. Like, I think, I have a legion of fans that if I did that, might think it sounds whack, but I don't know. I mean, there was probably some room to compromise there that I didn't have the sophistication or maturity to understand that nuance. At the same time, there's some things I said no to that became big hits that I'm glad I said no to.
Okay.
Because it's not about having a hit. I've had wonderful moments. I've had some hits in my life, but when I'm done, I want people to look at my catalog the way you're looking at it.
Exactly.
That this was good, this was better, this was even better, this was a step back, this was this, oh, this is jazz, this is... I want them to look at it like that. And so the only person I've never been able to say no to and never will is obviously A.R. Rahman. So
A.R. Rahman, okay. So how was that? I'm like, how was that? You worked with A.R. Rahman, right? So how was that?
It's amazing. Again, like Abhishek, I'm glad that he's a friend, but he, again, it's a very humbling experience to work with him.
Yeah.
Because you'll be in the studio all day, and I was kind of looking like, what is he doing? I was like, what is he doing, man? It's 8:00. I got to leave in 2 hours. We're sitting here eating ice cream. What's going on? Right. And then all of a sudden it just, there's some people on earth that are on a different plane.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of them. So to be in the room, to see that magic, boy, that's a gift.
So that's the only music director that you have made exception for, A.R. Rahman, right?
Well, yeah, I think I did something with Sachin Jigar.
Yeah.
But mainly the stuff is Rahman. I hope I get that call again.
Right. So now you said that you became a father. So how did that transform you as a person? And of course, how that translates you in your craft or in the coming times, the kind of music that we get to hear from you. So what can you tell us something about that?
I had when I had Ria,
Right.
it was also an interesting time in my life. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like if something happened to me today, what would the headline be that Ria would get to see?
Okay.
Like if I died today, what would it say? And I think
Hmm.
it would say, Angel Eyes singer Raghav has died. Okay. And
That
I
would be
thought,
the,
okay, that's a pretty good headline,
yeah.
right? Now, after COVID, I think it would say, Teri Baton singer Raghav has died, right? So basically, I have the rest of my life to change that headline.
Okay. Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
I have the rest of my life to change that headline of what Ria gets to see on that day, hopefully a long time from now.
Okay.
That completely changes your mindset. It's not about, well, what's the next gig and how much am I doing this and what's this and how do I get this feature and how do I, it is, what am I building for the most important person in my life to remember me by? What legacy am I building that she wants to build on? Make sense?
Yes. Yes.
It
That's a
sounds
very
very dramatic. I know it does,
no,
but
no.
it's the
It
truth.
doesn't sound dramatic. It's a very interesting and very philosophical way of looking at it. But it does sound it sounds very real, very authentic. So now I've seen the independent music has emerged significantly during the COVID era, and it has become a parallel industry right now. So,
Yes.
what do you think? Malab, is it going to sustain or is it going to stay like this forever? What are some of the challenges that independent artists of today have to navigate through?
Nothing is going to stay forever. I think that
Right.
for the first time in the Indian market, the folks that what you would call the major labels or the major players who are making more money than they've probably made in the
Right.
history of their companies
Right.
also might have lost a bit of control. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that that's always going to be a struggle
Right.
in terms of figuring out a system, an ecosystem where independent artists can
Right.
share, win freely with major labels. We've never had anything like this, but this is very reminiscent of when Storyteller came out.
Okay. Okay.
It is very reminiscent that something can cut through that wins people's hearts without $1 million budget behind it.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think after Storyteller, after Angel Eyes, after those records, almost all the hits you've heard were either viral or they had some major 7-figure budget USD behind it.
Right.
And so we were kind of, in many ways, the last bit of that pop era that kind of, I look at the Bombay Rockers and all that stuff, that's happening again. And I think we're seeing that now with the resurgence of my music online. Is that people are just going, yo, what is this record? It sounds dope. And now 19-year-old kids who were not even born when the record came out are going, oh my God, this sounds fresh. When is it coming out? Because they know what they like. The only difference now is that records don't live as long. Like I think when Storyteller was #1 in India, it was like #1 for like 40 weeks or something.
Oh my God.
Don't quote me on that. But, it just never went away.
Right.
The idea that something could be that sustainable today seems unrealistic.
Right.
But we're all going to die trying,
Right. So, finally coming to your future projects. So, I know you cannot disclose much about it, but what are some of the themes or genres that it would explore?
Listen, the next single is like Mushtaq made Can't Get Enough, Let's Work It Out, Bad, Nobody. For the story, for the Storyteller fans, they know what those records are.
Yeah.
It's that.
Okay.
I wanted to be able to say thank you to all these fans, to the millions of reels. I'm not making that number up. Millions of reels that happened since COVID started.
Right.
For the fans, both that live within my music, live it within some nostalgia. And for the people today that are going, oh, Angel Eyes sounds dope. When does it drop? And it's like, it came out 20 years ago. It is that.
That's it from my end. Thank you so much, Raghav. It was a pleasure talking to you. All the very best for the upcoming single. And we want to hear you more often now.
I appreciate it. This time I keep saying I'm not coming back to go away. So I appreciate your,
Yeah,
I'll need your support actually, because it's going to be an uphill climb, but let's see, it'll be fun.
definitely. Thank you so much, Raghav.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you. Take care.